what if you can't use fetch? Well, the data fetching in the new version of Next.js is pretty cool. It's forced cache by default, as you can see here, right? You write a fetch command and it's just cached by default. That's so good. And if that's not tickling your fancy, you can pass in a JavaScript object and configure next.revalidate. You can say, well, I want you to revalidate, purge the cache that you have every 10 seconds or every hour if you want to, right? Or maybe you are into dynamic data fetching and you don't want caching at all. That works, right? But what if you can't use fetch, right? Well, that's where you end up using segment cache config, at least for now. Let me explain what, right? But before we go there, let me explain what is a segment, right? So here's a URL, acme.com, and this is your domain, right? And as you can see, highlighted in blue are two URL segments. What are they? URL segments, right? So it cannot be more simpler than that, right? So each segment in Next.js app router is actually a folder. As you can see, this is the root segment, this is another segment, dashboard, and then there is a leaf segment, settings. Each of these segments are actually loading something, like maybe the dashboard is responsible for navigation and setting is responsible for, settings, right? Now you know what the segment is. So what you can do is you can, make use of segment cache config, in which if I zoom in here, you can see I'm using Prisma, right? And you can clearly see this is an SDK, an ORM, and there's no fetch command here. But what you can tell your segment right here is that, well, I want you to revalidate all the data fetching happening in this segment every hour, right? So there you go. You can actually configure caching behavior per segment. You can actually change the default caching behavior as well, but there's another video for that. Well, now you know. Lovely jubbly. I'm Ahmad Awais, and this was One Dev Minute.